St. Macarius of Egypt, 4th century, is talking about how a woman was changed into a horse. And the man came to him in tears. My wife has been, transformed into a horse by a magician. And he said, "Oh, okay, well, I'll come and see, see what I can do." And the whole village was there, and there's this. St. Macarius sees a woman. They see a horse. There was no changing her into a horse. It was the illusion, and they were deluded enough to. That's what they saw. So this is a danger in prayer when the guardian angel appears to you and says, "Well, I say prayers with you," and they say everything that you say, but of course they're not saying it. There are other stories about a monk again praying in his cell and the angels helping him to pray, and it's actually blasphemy. He thinks he's reading Psalms. It's not, he's blaspheming God. But for him, he can't hear it because he's deluded. So it affects the ears and the eyes. And I think the story of the horse is important. St. Anthony the Great, in the same period, was praying, and he saw these people coming to him. He was clairvoyant as a saint, and they had a donkey, and the donkey died on the road. And he saw that, and when the people came to meet him, he said, "What happened to what happened to the donkey?" "Oh, it died." "How did you know?" He said, "Well, I know because the demons told me." They can travel back in time. I mean, not time, no, they can travel distances. And that they would come and tell him. And they said, "But, okay, we understand that, but what about we see a lot of phantoms, they call them, and sometimes they become real, take on real form." Now, when we go back to this deacon on the Holy Mountain, he was saying that his angel taught him things. And he said, "Well, does he tell you immediately?" He said, "No, he usually asks me to wait for a while. There's a delay because demons have to travel. So they can go from here to New York and see somebody who's very ill and know what's happening and come back and tell you in your prayers that so-and-so is very ill and you need to pray for them." I mean, this is demonic. I'm talking, this is to catch you into the net. And there's a delay because they have to travel. They cannot know the future. Angels don't know the future unless God reveals it to the angels. He certainly does not reveal the future to demons and fortune tellers and tarot cards and other things that are related to that. But with the deacon, he said, "Right now, what I want you to do is, your angel says these prayers. He says, right, I'm going to think of something, and I want the angel to tell you what I'm thinking, because only angels can do that by God's permission. It's not automatic. So I'm going to think something, and if he is your guardian angel, and we're working for your salvation, then God will tell him what I'm thinking." So he goes to the angel, turns up the next night, and he's praying. He says, a simple question. He said, "Can you tell what my elder's thinking?" And the angel says, "Why? Why are you bothered with that? It's not worth even bothering with, This man's inferior. You're far superior. You don't, this is nonsense. Don't bother." And he said, No, I want to know. Just tell me." Anyway, this angel started getting troubled and a little bit getting cross, and eventually he turned into his real form, which was a demon. He said, "You are cursed and you're going to hell, and I'm coming for you tonight, for your soul." So the deacon ups and runs to the elder. And that night he clung onto the riasa he wouldn't let go of the elder. The elder went to sleep and he just hung on to him for fear, because this thing, anyway, through the prayers of the elder, the demon was dispersed, went away. So this is trusting in your visions. This is very serious business. So there's another example which I came across a long time ago in reading, was a man in Moscow. I don't know the details, but the story is that he went to some sort of evening soiree, some aristocrat's house, and they were drinking. He met this man, and he was very witty, and they sort of connected a good friendship. it seems. So they went out together. But what happened is that this man started taking him to houses of ill repute and drinking sessions, and he thought, well, this is, not that. I don't really want to be doing this. And he said, well, I am actually a Christian, Orthodox Christian, I shouldn't be doing this. And the man said, it doesn't matter, And he takes him to his apartment, invites him back and says, look, I can't do this anymore. We've had a good time, we discussed poetry and philosophy and literature, and you're very knowledgeable. I don't know how you have all this knowledge, but it's wonderful, He said, but I can't give up church and prayer. And it's just, they don't behave like that. He didn't want to do these things. And he said, everything I believe is here. He took a gospel, he said, well, this is what I believe. And he gave it to him, man, and the man disappeared. And he'd been in his company for 3 or 4 weeks. Physical. Back to St. Anthony. St. Anthony says with the demons, they saw the donkey, they told me, because they can travel, so do not believe things like that. And they said, but how do these demons take on real form? And he said, we are not allowed to inquire into that. End of story. So the demons can take on physical form. There is another problem, and this will affects doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists. It affects them that continuous involvement with demon-possessed people or demonic influence actually begins to affect the person helping. And so that needs special prayer to be able to deal with that. And the problem is, the doctor, the psychologist will develop psychological abnormalities because of being exposed to evil, basically, if it is continuous. Now there is a trend, I was discussing this with Gregory a couple of days ago, of, people have their own therapist, like they have their own insurance agent, accountant. This is a very dangerous practice. It should not be continuous. It should be maybe a session that one can help, several sessions, but not a continuous relationship. I think that's what the danger is. You can't say that that is wrong because it depends on the person and circumstances. But as a Christian doctor, psychiatrist, then this is important to be aware of the influence of demons. So what leads to possession? Well, with Motovilov, we don't know really, do we? Except that he was curious about what it'd be like to be possessed, and he was possessed. I don't understand that. I have no idea what that means. But usually possession is based on the occult. People dabble into the occult. Spiritualism. I don't know any of you ever been to a spiritualist meeting? I don't mean a seance, okay, I'm not talking about that. I mean, there is a spiritualist church, universal, and I've been to one. My mother was very interested in that. Fortunately, not to a depth. She just was curious. She knew somebody that went, and so she went. Yeah.
The Unitarian Universalists.
No, spiritualist church. Spiritualist church. It is actually a church of the spirit, and they have mediums. Well, I went with my mother. I was probably about 8 or 9. And I'll tell you the story because it's, I think it shows that quite a lot. The medium, we started with singing hymns. I don't know what the words were. I mean, they're meant to be Christian, I suppose, but I mean, I didn't know what it was about. And then this lady started to speak about one of how Jesus is love. Yes, it's all about Jesus, the whole thing. And then she stops and says, somebody's trying to get through to me now. And she was talking to people around in the church saying, well, you've got this person that, and she could describe them, and they started to laugh because they knew them. Because this is all demonic. The demons know. And that various people have spirit guides. And this is part of spiritualism. Well, it is actually demonism. That's what spiritualism is, and that can lead to possession. It doesn't mean that it will, but it can do. And anything in the occult. Another story was a man that was having a bad marriage, and his wife was very pious, and he wouldn't go to church. And this is Orthodox, and this is Athens, and so the marriage basically began to break up. She said, "If you don't go to church and go to communion, there's no point in living together anymore. I'm leaving you." Well, he loved his wife and his children, so he said, "Well, I better go and heard on the holy mountain that people can help, an elder." So anyway, he finds an elder, and he explains that I just can't go to church. He says, "Well, why do you think that is?" He says, "Well, I think it might be because I like magic." He was into the occult, and he had a special book which is of magic. I'm not going to mention the name of it, it's not a good idea, but there is a book available in Greek. And he said, "Well, you're going to have to burn that book, because this is why you can't have a relationship with your wife. She's pious and you're demonized." He wasn't possessed necessarily, but he had to get rid of the book. So he said, "Well, I'll give it to you." He said, No, I'm not taking it." The elder said, No. He said, "You take it and burn it, and get rid of it." So on the way from the cell, they're sitting on the holy mountain, he sees a hole in a rock up above the road, and he says, "Okay." So he lights it, sets lights to it and throws it into the hole and walks off, and that's the last he sees of it. But it's not the last effect of it, because a young monk is walking up the road, and as he comes near this hole in the rock, there's a shower of stones start flying at him, and boulders start breaking away from the side of the mountain. And he runs as fast as he can into the elder. He misses it in the elder. And he tells him, he said, "Okay, well, I better come and have a look at it." So he goes, the elder goes to the hole and blesses it, and they put an icon of the Mother of God there. And so that stopped. But before he went to do this, I should say, for several days, nobody would dare walk past this spot. The road was impassable. You just got attacked. Showers of stones, very painful, of course, and dangerous because there were boulders as well falling down. And also there was a monk, and the elder said that when disobedient monks, if they walked past this place, were attacked automatically. So some weren't. The ones who were disobedient were. The elder went there and expelled the demon. So that was the end of that. Another one is a pastry cook from Athens. It's another story by St. Paisius. It tells of this young man who wants to become a monk, and so he goes to the holy mountain, and his parents are very, very upset about this, and they're not going to allow it. And so they practice magic. This is quite rife in Greece, by the way.
What
Paganism.
era are we speaking of? What time frame?
30s, 40s. And so they used magic to get him back. And he had been involved in it himself, but now he wanted to become a monk, and he had confessed all this. And so wherever he went, he was followed by a shower of stones. And he said to the elder, he said, "Look, I know it's me. Can I just do a test?" He said, I'll go off to the church on my own." And when he went on his own, the stones only fell, not on him, but around him, to hinder him. Eventually the elder said, "No, you have to leave the holy mountain. This is, you can't do this, you're disturbing everybody." So he gets on a boat, and in the boat, they're hit with stones. The sailors are scared out of their wits. This is in the middle of the ocean, and there's no rocks or anything around, and yet these stones are coming and pelting him. The end of the story we don't know. We don't know the end of this story, I'm sorry about that, but that's just an example. Spiritualism, fortune telling, yoga. Oh no, well, yoga's only exercise, isn't it, really? Stretching a bit, getting yourself fit. And I would say doing prostrations would be the equivalent of yoga, because in yoga you are bowing down to the Hindu gods. Every position in yoga is an offering to the gods, the demons. Well, it's harmless, isn't it? So what about prostration? What are you doing with prostration? Is that just an exercise? It's worship to the true God, whereas yoga exercises are to the demons. So don't be misled by this as fitness thing. Yes, it might make you fit, but you're actually venerating demons by doing these postures. Also, these things, according to St. Eliphas, being involved in magic and all occult spiritualism, affect children and the grandchildren. It gets passed down the generations. So it's very dangerous to be involved in these things. He says that many psychiatrists, and he's talking about orthodox psychiatrists, not pagan, not secular, are embarrassed to recognize the existence of evil spirits. I mean, I know that personally, actually. It's never discussed or even admitted to. It's embarrassing to even bring up the topic at a meeting. But you see, no kind of medication or therapy can drive out demons. Can't. It has to be through the church, through a priest. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. Oh yes, I want to go back to spiritualism. Do you remember Conan Doyle? The writer of Sherlock Holmes stories. He was a spiritualist. And he became a spiritualist because there was a photograph taken of his son's regiment. And a few months before he was killed in the war, he'd been killed, but there he was in the photograph of the regiment. And that converted him to he started to get really interested in spiritualism, and in fact he was very much involved in that. So this is how one can be caught out. Carl Jung had a spirit guide. In fact, he had several spirit guides. I think he wrote a book called Tales from the Crypt. No, that's a TV series. It's something like that. Tales from the Dead. He had a spirit guide who told him what to write for his psychology. You won't come across that in a course in psychology in a college here. But that's where he got his knowledge from. So using Jungian psychology in a Christian environment is not a good idea. Colossians on Sunday. Don't be cheated by the philosophy and empty deceit, the traditions of men, basic principles of this world, and not according to Christ. And I think this is one of the reasons people don't believe in demons and cannot accept that, because they follow the trends of the times, the philosophy, secular philosophy. Prayer. Just to finish off this one. St. Gregory of Sinai said when we pray, and think about the monk who was shaking, is that we should ignore any light or voices or anything like that in prayer, because that is temptation. So our prayer should, he says actually, our mind should be colourless and without light or form. So as I said to you before, when you sing the Jesus prayer, you're not saying it emotionally. If you do, that's wrong. You're saying it on a practical level only, concentrating on the words, not for effect, not for self-improvement. It is just to say the prayer to be in contact with God. This is what's important. And of course, in the Jesus prayer, people are scared of it because people are being possessed, like the shaking monk, because not being able to say it properly, with proper attitude.